Hey, Jenna, thanks so much for being on the Emotion Leads podcast.
I am honored to be on with you, Kim. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yes, we met in something called Women in Business, which you have started at our church, which is amazing. And we'll get into some of the business and faith based things that we believe in a little bit later. But I've been so excited to have you on the show because, in addition to you helping us women in faith and business, you are also a registered dietitian and you work with athletes, and I'm really interested in what you do. But before we go there, I want to know about you. I want to know your personal story behind going into nutrition and personal training, and not just where you came from, how you came up with that decision, but was there anything going on with you that personally really gave you that passion?
Yeah, this is a fun question because we have to go way back there. I feel really blessed that a seed was planted in my life pretty early on. So I grew up as an athlete. We were a sporty home. I played volleyball. And in high school, I really wanted to pursue the opportunity to play beyond at the college level. So, in doing all the things you need to do to be your best, I started working with a trainer who not just helped me physically with my training, but also taught me how to eat a little bit differently and really to have better energy. I remember before meeting with him, I would eat peanut M&Ms after school as my pre-practice snack, and he just taught me not in a negative way, no shaming or whatever, but just, hey, let's try some different things. Like, here's some great options for breakfast. I just remember that conversation really clearly, and I was blown away, Kim, by how much energy I had as a result of that and how much of a difference it made in my stamina and my ability to lead my team. And so that really planted a seed in me that, hey, there's something to this. And then my dad is a marriage and family therapist. So he grew up in a home where talking about a lot of things was super normal. So I actually went into college thinking that I would potentially follow in his footsteps and pursue a degree in psychology. And I really had this idea of working in disordered eating very early on. My freshman year, I ended up in a nutrition course, which was going to be my minor. And I learned about how incredible the science of nutrition was. Like, it was so much deeper than I'd even realized. And I immediately fell in love and switched my major to nutrition first. And then my minor is in psychology. Always having this desire to really better understand not just the physiology, but the mindset behind why people eat and don't eat. And then just with my experience as an athlete, and then marrying a football coach, which came as a part of the story too, just always loved athletes. And from day one, really wanted to help people perform better in their sport. And the cool thing is that I've realized over my career now of almost 20 years is that really everybody wants to perform better in their life. It's not just athletes. And so that's really translated a lot of the work that I do with high level athletes into us mere mortals just trying to get through our days with good energy. And so that's led me into my work. And I've always worked just with regular adults as well, because we all want to perform. And I feel really passionate now about helping people eat to have great energy and to live with purpose, their God-given purpose, each and every day.
That's wonderful. I love how everything that you just mentioned about helping athletes with food, with nutrition, with performing better, did not revolve around just weight loss and just learning to eat so that they have a better looking body. It's all in that inner performance and that purpose. So that's wonderful. I have been watching some of the work that you're doing and listening to you also talk about women over 40 and this perimenopausal stage that many women are going through. All women will pass through menopause in some form. And so it is such a great, it's a hot topic. There's billions of women that are in the age range from 40 and above that are going through this. So I'd love to kind of hone in on this demographic for a moment. With everything that you do, the nutrition, and with the fitness, what are some of the things that women are really misguided on right now as a woman over 40? What are they doing that you would love to be shifting them out of right now?
This is a great question because my first answer is that they're not doing anything. What I'm finding and really what has engaged me with 40 and up, which, for most women is a little young for them starting their menopause journey, is that most women are just kind of crossing their fingers and closing their eyes and hope they make it on the other side of menopause with no scars. And, as I dive into the research, I really am finding over and over again that one of the best ways that you can navigate menopause successfully is just by educating and knowing what's going to happen. If 50% of women go into menopause not having any education about what they're about to experience, imagine if you went through any other major life event with zero knowledge. So simply equipping women to be prepared and not in fear. I think it is a slippery slope right now out there where women are just afraid of what's about to come. So it's not about that, but more just really understanding what happens in your body as a result, what menopause actually is. And I love doing this one-on-one with my clients of just saying, can I explain to you what is happening and why you feel the way you do? And they're just like, are you serious? That's what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, it's that simple, air quotes. It's not necessarily that simple, but like you need to understand there's a root cause here. So first and foremost, it's simply just educating yourself on what will happen in your body. Now, what kind of symptoms you have is TBD, but everyone will go through the process of running out of eggs. So we need
Yes.
to understand that. And then to just be prepared for what the many, many signs and symptoms could be of that. It's not just our key flagship ones we know of hot flashes or night sweats. There's, dozens of other options there. And then I would say your 40s is really a critical time to begin to lay the foundation of what health is going to look and feel like for you in the second half of your life, Lord willing. And to do it in a way that's a journey first and foremost. Like we're not going to fix this in 21 days. This is let's get that little 1% better every day, in the sense of, let me just do a little something today. I don't have to do all the things, but let me just do a little things. If weight training is something I know I need to do and I have very little experience with that, well, I don't want you to hit CrossFit tomorrow. I want you to just begin to learn to move. And maybe it's an investment with a good trainer for just a couple of months to learn that, or maybe it is to hone in on your grocery skills, or maybe it is a meal planning service, whatever it might be. And this is the fun part of working with a client, really connecting them with those great next steps. But really just beginning to be open and learn about what are some of the keys that you're going to need to really survive, but really thrive through the next season of your life. And that's my charge to women is like, don't just sit back and hope everything's going to be okay. Because the research shows we're all going to have one symptom or another. We're going to have something. It may not be that bad. It may be terrible. I don't know. But if you're prepared for it, you're going to be so much in a better position to do something about it. And sometimes it's even just finding a good practitioner. And I'll just tell you, for me personally, I just started with a brand new gynecologist who I researched on, and I was like, this is going to be the person that I want to walk me through the next 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not the person who helped me deliver my babies. They were great, but like I'm looking for different things now. And so even just establishing that, like, and she's like, why are you here? Do you have any problems? And I'm like, no, I'm just ready for a new gynecologist. And so just to have that and know I'm in the right place. And that's a great step for women to take as well.
I think that's wonderful. One thing you said that I really appreciate is this is a journey because when we look at everything as a destination, which a lot of women in my age group have been dieting on and off for 20 to 30 years. So everything's a destination. When I lose 10 pounds, I'll feel this way. When I get through menopause, I'll feel this way. When I get into an exercise program, I'll feel this way. And the journey is ongoing. Our bodies are evolving all the time. I also love that you mentioned there are so many more symptoms than, not to scare anyone, but
Mm-mm.
to just understand what's happening to yourself so you don't give yourself the guilt trip and you can give yourself grace is There are probably 100 symptoms because some happen for women and some don't. Everything from brain fog, anxiety,
Mm,
depression, gut issues, itchy skin, the weirdest things. And I also appreciate so much you sharing about educating now because even if you're in your 30s, early 40s, and you don't think you're going through it, now's the time to really listen in because when I went through it, I didn't have a clue. I hadn't had the menopause classes yet. I hadn't even been in nutrition. I was a high school math teacher before I went into the health coaching side of it. And my side is more habit based, but I wanted to understand menopause because when I went through it, it's embarrassing to say, but I just thought I was ragey. I just thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was losing my memory. I thought there were a lot of other things going on. And it's so nice when women know, they feel empowered. And that's the last thing that you mentioned is finding a practitioner and feeling empowered and linking up with someone. And I found a hormone specialist, and the same thing this is the person who's going to walk me through this for a
mhm.
while. And this is personal, but I share everything on this podcast. I'm postmenopausal by
Mhm.
a few years. And what I do know is going on hormone therapy is extremely personal and it's a choice that everyone gets to make. But the information out there, it's fantastic. There's so much more information. And I will say it has pretty much saved my life and my brain. So,
Well, and I'll just say, your experience is exactly why I've decided to step into this menopause journey conversation. A few years ago, I just kept having conversation after conversation with either client or friend or member at our gym where they're just like, I feel like my body is against me. Like, what in the world is happening? And these ideas where, and culturally, we have to struggle with like, oh, we're crazy, it's those hormones, and like, no, there's like so much legitimacy to that. So I was really tired of hearing that in women and feeling irrelevant, or I don't have the energy to do this, or what am I supposed to do with myself now? So much in my life has changed, this real pivot point for women that menopause tends to align with. And I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. And so I just went on a personal quest, as I'm sure you did as well, to figure out what is this whole thing about? What is going on? How can I help other women be prepared and navigate it more successfully and to go through it with purpose? That this is a physiological change that you cannot stop. It's meant to happen. It's God has designed our bodies to do this. But it doesn't mean the rest of us is over. It's a real critical point to do some of that inner work as well as the physiological work as well.
that's fantastic. And I think that intention that you're creating with your clients is amazing because when we go through health issues willy nilly, we feel out of control. And when we feel out of control, we start to make decisions that are not necessarily rational or great for our bodies. We're just doing them to feel better and to survive. So that intention is amazing. And linking up with you is really powerful because you can advocate too. Hey, these are the questions you can ask your doctor. These are the things that we can look into. We can, and bring all your questions. I love that. That's amazing. So I'm curious about what women, whether they're menopausal, over 40, women that you're working with, athletes, what are you seeing in the diet space? And what I mean by that is, are you finding that women are responding to what they think they should do based on things they've seen, based on things they've read, as opposed to really looking at their own bodies? And what are they trying to do? What are the things that are the pitfalls that the women who are listening could maybe avoid rather than just going by what they see, for example, on social media?
Yeah. Well, I think kind of an umbrella statement on that is women, because we have access to so much information and many wonderful experts are just sharing their knowledge freely for us to listen, which is a good thing. But what I find is most women immediately go to, oh, these are the things I need to add into my life. And they don't look at how full their plate already is, because that's when I think we see paralysis by analysis, where oh my word, this is so much. I possibly can't do this, so I'm not going to do anything. And so, what I often will recommend or work through with ladies is, okay, what is our biggest priority here? What do you feel like is going to have the biggest return on the investment on your energy, how you feel and function? All right, is there something that we can let go of in order to make space for this to happen? Because we can't just keep adding. The cup's going to overflow. So, kind of on a mindset perspective, I think that's step one. And then the trends I'm seeing, which are not necessarily bad, but easily overwhelming, is our protein message right now that really we need a lot of protein, probably a lot more than you're currently eating. There's this 1 pound or 1 gram per pound of body weight floating around out there, which, if anyone quickly does the math, feels like all you're eating is meat all day long. So working with women to kind of find, well, what's the custom sweet spot for you? And I've seen women who really have benefited from a very high protein intake and really gotten through some plateaus they've experienced as a result of that. And then I've seen women have success at lower ranges as well. So that's a cool thing to kind of help them customize that. And I do think there's a lot of validity to us looking at our protein intake and making that more of a priority. But the other piece of that is we can't neglect fiber, we can't neglect other micronutrients that need to fit in there. And so also increasing fiber intake becomes so important. One, to balance and kind of put all that protein in good context from an overall health perspective and chronic disease prevention, but also to support a healthy gut, which becomes very important as we go through menopause. And I know you've done a whole series on your experience with that. Things can change in the gut as well. And so having a really strong intake of fiber and a strong intake of protein, I think, are two really critical components to eating for well-being, especially into the second half of our lives. And that does not happen magically, and it does not happen overnight. It takes that process and that journey. And some days you'll nail the fiber, and some days you'll nail the protein, and some days you'll nail both, and you'll actually figure out, how to make that happen for you. But that is something that is an ongoing process of figuring out. So I kind of see those as the two biggest things. The other thing I think is always on the table is time restricted eating or intermittent fasting. Do I do that? Do I not do that as women? And I think there's still a question mark around that. We're getting more research. When I originally engaged with intermittent fasting back in the mid 2010s, maybe 2015 is when we really saw that trend begin to rise. The question came up as like, all these studies I'm reading are of men. I haven't read one female study yet, and I'm pretty sure we're a little bit different. So that was one of my initial questions or warnings or cautions to women, particularly early on. We're now starting to get some more research on women, and particularly looking at perimenopause and postmenopausal. And I think it can become a tool in our toolkit for certain women to either promote anti-aging within the cell. I think there's some really powerful things there. It can be a helpful tactic for calorie restriction, but we can take both of those way too far where we begin to prioritize fasting over energy and feeling and functioning our best. So once again, the fun job that I have is helping women understand, here's these tools, which ones are best for you, how do we use them? And I think this idea that we should be intermittent fasting every day is not a good approach for the majority of women. It's a tool that we use for very specific outcomes in strategic times in our calendar during the year.
Oh, I'm so glad you hit upon some of these points. And as a habits and emotional eating coach, I'm just pointing that out as a difference because you are trained, have the education behind the nutrition. I am always asked, should I intermittent fast?
Mhm.
And everyone is so different, and hormonally, I think everyone is so different. It's interesting that that is such a sticking point because I think intermittent fasting is not being used by many women as an anti-aging, really looking at the autophagy and as something maybe to balance their blood sugar better. I think it's really as a fat loss tool. And I think that's where things get very sticky when women are looking at it just to lose this menopausal weight when there's so many factors involved.
Mhm.
Then there are women who do it and they're very successful and it makes their journey with food just easier on them. So I
Yeah.
think again, we exactly like you're talking about, we really are looking at different bodies.
Mhm.
Every body is different, everybody is different.
Mhm.
But the protein, I'm so glad you talked about that because it really is. Protein is a second job for me if I really want to work on it. And I love it. And it's very funny. I will share, I always share kind of the personal side of it. There was a time when I was much more plant-based and it just didn't serve me. And when I started adding the protein in, that's not the same for everyone. But I went too far. I really pushed the protein, like you said, and I didn't forget about the fiber, but I wasn't getting as much, so my body did react to that.
Mhm.
And we need all of it. It's amazing. But I love that you address that because that is really the message out there right now. And there's like not enough room in the fridge for all the meat, cottage cheese, and Greek yogurt right now.
Yes, yes, and you know, I'm always working on, tips and strategies to make it easier, particularly for women, but I work with a lot of men as well. And again, it's never going to be perfection. We're never going to necessarily nail it, and that's okay. And this is why, knowing what your goal is for your feeling and function of your body is so critical because you may not hit a goal number, but you felt great. You had good energy. Your body did what you needed it to do today. You slept well, whatever, add to your list. Well, then fantastic. Yes, we have recommendation numbers and there are benefits to trying to stick within most of those. But we're human beings, and life is very, very fluid. And there's going to be some days where you prioritize other things, because that is what is most important that day. And that's got to be okay too. And that's why this is such a journey. I think we just need to keep saying that, ladies. It is a journey. It's no day will be perfect, and no day may be the same either.
I think that's very important and very special to say it's going to be okay. And that
Mhm.
leads me to another great topic, which I know you have talked about more flexible eating. And I think the common term that a lot of people are using is intuitive eating. But I liked the term flexible eating because there is a little bit of being in the intuitive eating space, I find there's a little bit of misunderstanding about just eating all the donuts you want and eating all the chocolate as opposed to that overlap of, and for people who cannot see the video, I have one hand kind of overlapping the other, kind of like a Venn diagram, the healthy and the feeling your body out and eating what feels good at
Mhm.
that time. So I would love for you to talk to that. How are you helping people be more flexible eaters?
Mhm. Well, to take it back to the intuitive eating approach, well, first, let me just say there's two goals that I have when I work with my clients. One is that they are a confident eater, meaning they know what to eat in different scenarios that helps their body feel and function its best. And that two, that they're flexible with their health and wellness strategies because life requires it. I feel like if you have those two qualities, you will be healthy for the rest of your days because you can take on the challenges that come, which we will all have. So, first and foremost, when it comes to being flexible, we have to know what is our goal. What is success? We have to define success. And so in my practice, we start by defining values and crafting a purpose statement. And why this is so critical, most people would be able to, list off a couple of values: family, faith, integrity, whatever, which are probably true, but very few people have actually done the work to really identify and write out and ensure that they know what their core values are. And from that, then I help people develop a purpose statement of some amount of words that helps that person know, when I'm showing up as my best with the best energy that I have, this is what it looks like. These are the qualities that I display. And so that becomes our litmus test for whatever we do in nutrition and fitness. Is it successful? Certainly, weight and body composition can be a part of that success story, but it is not the guiding star. It is not the North Star for us. That is a result of us using these other guiding principles. So, when we have those before us and we know what is me showing up with my best self, what does good energy look like, what does living out my values look like in a life that I would say this is well lived, then we can begin to look at the strategies and the way that we eat in the day in light of that. Well, what did you choose for breakfast? Did that give you good energy? Do you feel like you showed up as the mom or spouse that you wanted to after that? Okay, if not, what could we try differently? What do you think was it was about that? So it's no longer about morality eating, this was right, this was wrong, but more this contributed to me having the energy and showing up as the person I wanted to be, and this did not. It is such a more powerful driver of behavior change when we're connected to our values and say, yes, I could choose to eat 8 Oreo cookies at lunch every day. I love Oreo cookies, double stuffed, please, forever. And I could do that. I could even just have 2. Let's not even make it ridiculous. I could have 2 Oreos with my lunch every day. And that could fit and I could make the calories fit, whatever. But what I've noticed when I've done that, because I've tried it, I don't have the energy I need to use my time wisely in the afternoon. I don't show up as a good carpool mom because I'm cranky, et cetera, et cetera. And so when those Oreos call my name, I now have such a stronger sense of, do I want to eat them or not eat them, because of who I need to be on the other side of that. Not to say I don't have Oreos, because I certainly will, but in the situations that I've tried it. So experimentation is a big part of how I work with people. We use that word experiment. Let's try this out. You want chocolate for lunch? There's nothing wrong with chocolate. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. Our test for success is, how do you feel and function? You might be able to live on the chocolate diet. We might be able to make that work, great. Or whatever food it might be that people want to incorporate into their life. We have to experiment and find out, how do you feel and function. So we evaluate our circumstances not with judgment, shame, negative self-talk, but instead with what I like to say, compassionate curiosity. Well, what happened and what was the result? And am I happy with that? And if not, what could I do differently next time? And by repeating that process of connecting with values and purpose, experimenting in our different circumstances, evaluating for how did we feel and function, we're able to become confident, and we're able to become flexible, because we know, and hey, at a Christmas party, let me experiment. What do I really want to have that would be really fun at this? Okay, well, what can I experiment to make sure that that happens in a way that I feel good about when I'm done? That's an experiment. Everything's an experiment. So those are some of the steps that I take with people. That's the cognitive behavioral therapy side of it, of just learning how to eat what's right for you comes from both failure and success. We can learn from both. Nothing is lost when we come with that compassionate curiosity to just decide, did this align with my values? Did I show up as my best self? If not, let me try something different. Long answer there, Kim.
That is the best answer, though. I love everything you said, because we do, as a society, put that morality of good food, bad food. And when we call food good or bad, we end up putting that on ourselves as being good or bad also.
Mhm,
And then when we loop in those emotions, we get this guilt cycle, and it just perpetuates the cycle of eating things without really looking at what you're doing. Is this aligning with my values? Is it aligning with my life, how I
mhm,
want to feel? I think that's powerful. I also love how it's an experimentation process, because we feel like with dieting, I'm going to use dieting as an example. We go in, there's no experimenting. You eat this or you don't eat this for 30 days. And if you didn't make it through day 3, at lunch, you're done. You're not perfect, so you didn't do the diet, and people fall off. And with this experimentation process, you're allowing people to be again in the journey. It's an
mhm,
ongoing experimentation, evaluation. And
mhm,
that's so powerful. And the last thing I want to touch on, really one of my favorite things, is criticism is not going to be helpful when we're curious over being critical. It's just so powerful being an observer on the outside. why did I not feel good? Why was my stomach upset? Why was I wanting to go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Mhm.
Those are things that are so much more powerful than this is allowed and this is not allowed.
And Kim, that's a process that I do to this day, and I learn from my mistakes. There are many times where I eat things, whether well-intentioned or not, and I experience something and I'm like, oh, I'm not happy with this outcome. It is not what I was going for. And I want to be like, oh, yeah, like you can't have this in the house or whatever, go down that spiral. But instead, just saying, all right, well, when I'm in this situation again, what what I want to try so that I don't feel this way. And we can learn from it. And it's not lost. It's not a lost situation. And I think that's a really beautiful moment because then I can trust myself. Then when I have that mindfulness moment with myself and I'm back in the same scenario, it's not the woulda, shoulda, coulda, yes, no, right, wrong. It's, oh, I remember what happened last time. Yeah, I don't think I want that again. How could I do it where I still enjoy this, but don't feel that? Let's try something different. And there could be 100 other options, not just one.
That's great. As with working with emotional and binge eaters, that's really powerful.
Mm,
And the word that you said was trust, learning to trust yourself, not just around food, but trusting yourself with making decisions. We don't have to be so dead set on making the perfect decision when we know that it is just part of, I think of like eighth grade science, where we had to write up the whole thing and, do our hypotheses and then see what really happened. And that's what
yeah.
we are. We're like science experiments, N equals one right now.
Mhm.
So I love that. I would love to shift gears into just as a business owner. We both have our own businesses, and I'm very curious. We met through, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, through Women in Business, which you started and got so many beautiful women together who own their own businesses or they're working, they want to connect and network. And I was curious as because sometimes coaches will listen to the podcast, not just people who are women over 40 trying to get healthy. And a lot of these women are either business owners or they're working and they're working to try to balance everything.
Mhm.
How, as a business owner, do you one bring God in every day? Because that's a subject matter that we talk about in these meetings, that faith. And how did God lead you to make the decisions that you're making?
Mm. Oh, deep questions. Well, I will first confess that I do not have it right all the time or nearly all the time. I am an experiment here as well. So one of the things that's been a big shift in my work life in the past 3 years is I came across um, a group called Faith Driven Entrepreneurs, a really wonderful ministry, a not international ministry that has a podcast, but they also have this wonderful 8-week free Bible study that is meant to do as a small group. And so God led me as well as a couple of their colleagues who are also dietitians who realized, hey, we don't really know any other Christian dietitians. Are they out there? Like, what in the world? And we started to have these conversations. We're like, wait, you are, oh my word, like, let's get together. And we found this study. And so for the past 3 years, I've been leading a small group of dietitians each year through this faith driven entrepreneur study. And it's amazing. You can do it on your own. I would highly recommend it. But many of the topics within there are things that continue to challenge me in how I approach and run my business. For instance, one is God owns my business. He is my CEO. And really having that mentality, which, as an independent business owner, as a female, I'm just used to making the decisions. This is what I want to do. I'm going to go do it. I think we've even maybe had a personal conversation about that. And what I'm really praying and asking God to do in me is to pause and to not be in a rush with any of these decisions and to first present them to Him. And many times He asks us to wait, which is the worst, but it's also the best. Wait for Him to bring His peace or His confirmation or to do the work on our behalf in the background, things beyond our control, and for him to open doors and to say, go this way or don't. And there's so many beautiful promises in scripture about how God and Christ and the Holy Spirit are behind us. They're in our past, they're before us, they're in our future. We can walk in step with the Spirit. So these very clear, like directional attributes of walking with the Lord that I really try to connect with. And I need to do it even more. Because I'm finding anytime I'm driven by fear or anxiety in my decision making, that's becoming a yellow light to me to stop and to bring it to the Lord first and ask Him, all right, what's going on here? Are you trying to get my attention? What do you want to do? Should I do this? And in the past year, I've really just been working through His telling me to do less. Which is so hard, as an entrepreneur and a business owner and a creative who's always got ideas. I'm never short on those. In order to have this air quote balance, which is not a thing, but this work-life integration, I actually have to say like no to more things that I don't want to necessarily say no to. But it's been cool to see God honor some of those. And not even just with dollars, which, as you know, we got to keep the doors open, but just to see Him work in His kindness in ways that I could have never imagined in the background as well. So, hopefully that answers your question, because I'm still very much a work in progress in this one.
Aren't we all? Which is why I'm involved in Women in Business, because I am a work in progress in remembering to bring the Lord in every single day and into every decision, because I'm like you, I have so many ideas. And even this podcast is kind of funny. I had a friend who said, I need you to beta test my start a podcast course. And if you want to start a podcast, we can do this in 3 weeks. I was like, okay, let's
Amazing.
go. Yeah. Little did I know that this was going to be a major part of my life, which I love. I really do. But I did not stop to take that time. Another thing that I wanted to just ask your thoughts on, because being in this space, we are online all the time having to promote what we do, because the online space is really the easiest way to get it out to the most people. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome for so many people who are entrepreneurs, coaches, dietitians, anyone trying to help other people from what they see. Any thoughts on how we can really bring God in to help us with owning what we do, being who we are authentically?
Mm. Well, this takes me back to what I said earlier a little bit about God's timing. Anytime I have joined in the rat race of this much content at this time and post here and say this right thing, the return on that investment is typically poor. And not to say that doing it a different way, you go viral. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am using right now as my strategy is I want to put out content that I know is authentically me, authentic in representing good science, and is truly helpful to people. And if that takes longer or works on a different timeline, so be it. And anytime, I go to publish and there's anything in my spirits that's like, I just wait. I wait and I revisit it. And sometimes it still goes out and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't. Because it's so easy to promote yourself. Look at me. I had one uh, blogger who's been around forever. Just remember them saying once, there's a difference between content that says, look at me, and there you are. And so I try to remember that. I mean, it's easy to share yourself because it's your life and you record it and share it. But in even doing that, I always want to ask, is me sharing this about me also saying, there you are, I see you, um, to the best of my ability. So things like that. And I think when it comes to our content, we have these wonderful guiding posts from scripture that tells us, is it true? Is it excellent? Is it praiseworthy? Is it kind? Is it gentle? We have these words that we can filter what we're going to say through to ensure that the content that we're putting out, whether we're talking about Christ or not, is reflecting the kingdom of God, which is way bigger than the kingdom that I want to build on my own. And that's another concept I've really been wrestling with. And my dad, who's a brilliant therapist, has always said, I never want to be building my own kingdom. I only want to be building the kingdom of God. And so that's another thing that I will work through for myself, is whose kingdom is this building? Because mine will crumble, but the Lord's will never.
Powerful. I love that. And in being not only building the kingdom of God over our kingdom, but helping others be seen and heard. And I think that's one of the most important things we can do for people who need help, are in pain, want to change their situation, is you provide a very loving, compassionate, and curious environment for people to be seen and heard and to work through their journey. So I think that's so powerful. I really appreciate your time today, Jenna, because everything that you mentioned is helping
Mm.
women, and there's so much value to the information you've shared. And if you could think of just a couple tips, could be things you've already mentioned or things that are just coming to you now, just a couple tips for someone who, like you said, they're not doing a whole lot right now because they're confused, they're not really sure, just some easy things that can fit into their life and maybe help them be just 1% better every day.
Okay. Well, first thing that comes to mind, excuse me, is journaling. And this is something that has been a behavior I've been working on for a couple of years. And it came out of a season where I just realized I am not emotionally resilient. I can fly off the handle really fast here, and I don't like that. And so I just simply encourage people to use it as a tool to check in with their inner self. So I start with OMM, on my mind, and just writing out what's on my mind or encouraging someone to do the same. And just seeing what I'm thinking about often gives me compassion for how I'm feeling or enables me to connect that feeling back to a root cause. And then sometimes that's it. Sometimes there is no processing. It's just a dumping, and that's great. And other times there is a processing of like, all right, these are things that I need to pray about instead of be anxious about. Or I can understand why I feel this way because I'm thinking about this. Oh, there's actually a fear behind that. So it doesn't need to be complicated at all, but it's just one tool to really get connected with yourself and even just to write about these things. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I always call it externalizing the internal battle. When we keep things internal in our head, the irrational thoughts win. But when we externalize them, either verbally or written, we can have not just objectiveness with it, but we can win over some of those thoughts and recognize, oh, those aren't true. Those are not true things. So that to me is a really powerful place to start, just to kind of evaluate, where am I? Do a state of the union. How overwhelmed am I? Do I feel like I could do something? Is there something lacking in my life? Sometimes we're afraid to just admit, I am not happy with where I'm at. And that's embarrassing, or I have shame around that. Or this is something I hear a lot with women, like, I'm ashamed that I am struggling. I've never struggled before. I have struggled all my life, or whatever it is. So just a place to kind of get that out and come to grips in State of the Union, because that can lead us to those better values and purpose definition. And I think that's really important, to just be very real with yourself. And I always say, no one's coming for your journal. This isn't second grade. You can hide everything in there. You can go burn it when you're done. I don't care, but just get it out. So that, I think, is a really important thing. The next thing I would say is to begin in fitness and movement. We'll make it even bigger than just fitness, with whatever is accessible and enjoyable and doable for you at first. We can fine tune it as you go, but don't let the big, fat, audacious goal get in the way of you simply just moving a little bit more. And that may be walking. And that's a great place for us to start. Whatever it is, just incorporating a little bit more movement in. There's so many benefits. There's so many ways we can use movement to benefit our health through the menopause journey, but just simply beginning is the most important thing. We'll get there. No one got to barbell lifting without first just stepping out the door to walk. I always like to remind people of that. We got to start somewhere. So those are the two things. And then the third thing is, in support of what we do, like hire a coach, hire a dietitian, hire a mindset coach, whatever you need. And we don't have to get all the people at once, but just, okay. And maybe it's a physical therapist, having pelvic floor therapy, whatever, just the one thing. We're not meant to do this alone. A colleague of mine says we heal in community. And I couldn't agree more. When, again, that internal voice tells us we can do this, we'll figure this out, you're smart, whatever it is, we are smart people. But a lot of times we do need someone objective on the outside to help us guide through the noise, our story, our baggage, whatever, and be able to take some doable steps forward. And I know I've seen that in my practice. I know you've seen it in yours. Those light bulb moments where just God has used you to say the thing that that person has needed to hear, which changed everything. And that is such a gift and a privilege that we get to do. And I need my own coaches. I hire my own people in other areas, but don't be afraid to do that. It's not shameful. It's not you losing. It's not you defeated. It's actually you saying, I'm ready to do something about this. Let me get the best person I can to help me be the most successful I can be. And that is a triumphant statement, not a defeating one.
Wow, those are amazing tips. The journaling one is really interesting because in last week's podcast with the Functional Moms podcast, Raquel had given a tip to carry your journal around with you. And just like you said, it doesn't have to be, you're not writing a college essay here. You're literally just jotting down your thoughts and nobody's going to grade them. And I
Mm-mm.
found when I carried it with me, I was really likely to jot down those moments. And you talked about being emotionally resilient. First of all, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that, because I think as women with kids and jobs and being an entrepreneur or just trying to get through this health journey, it's very challenging. We are challenged from every side to be on point and to be calm and to have the peace, and which again is great, bringing the God piece into that, but we're human beings. And, I feel like sometimes I'm about ready to blow. So I really appreciate your comment on that. And the journaling is amazing. Plus, it sets you up to see patterns. It also sets you up to, like you said, get it all out, because sometimes it is just fear. Fear seems to
Mhm.
be such a bottom line. The
Yeah.
second thing you mentioned was beginning in fitness, and that can be a whole nother podcast also, of just starting, because
Yeah.
what we again see online is people heading to this gym where they have to get dressed a certain way and they have to learn to do the moves, and everybody's watching them and they're feeling like as soon as they step in the door. And it really doesn't have to be that way. It can be starting with what you're comfortable with, what you will do every day. So I think that's a very powerful step. And I think what I'm hearing from you is everything can be a small step that we incorporate, just learning to do it over and over again when we find things that work well.
Right. Right.
Yes. And the last one, I love that, hiring someone to help you. We have practitioners helping us. I mentioned even having a hormone specialist. I have a coach, and my coach is, I got certified as an EFT tapping coach. And this person also is a business coach and a mindset coach. But I have to go back to someone with my thoughts too and get help and get reframing.
Mhm.
And even hiring a therapist is a great idea if you
Amen.
need help. Yes, we all can use it. Just getting that reframe, because we see the world through our own eyes, our own experience, our own baggage. But when you get that reframe, sometimes you're like, wow, that perspective just changed it all.
Sure. And I think we
So,
also have to be careful about seeing our lives through social media as well,
yeah.
because it really is a false narrative that's so easy to buy into, myself included. And we're on social media. We want you to watch our content, but if it's keeping you from living your life, by all means, put it away. So I think we also need to be careful about protecting the time that we're spending there. What are we watching? How much time are we spending on there? Because that can reframe our mind as well, or renew our mind, as scripture says too. And we need to be careful about that. Is it just too much information? Some people just need to stop listening to podcasts. Like, you have enough information. Stop it. Let's find what we need to put into
Let's
action.
do it now.
Or just stop watching women who only wear crop tops. Like, there are t-shirts in the world. Women do wear them. Like that, step away. Like, that's not a reality for everyone either. So we need to be really careful about what we're putting in front of our face, because it's impacting who we are and who we're becoming as well. And I preach that to myself first and foremost.
Oh, I'm just as guilty as everyone. And what we consume is not just what we put in our mouth for food. What we consume can really take us over. And I highly recommend to my clients many times that if it's not inspirational, it's not making you feel good and giving you ideas to feel really good about your life and what you might want to, again, align with your values, it's time to unfollow, And like you said, the time that we spend on there could be some of these other soul-filling things that we need to do.
Yeah,
Jen, I
for sure.
want people to find you. First of all, I'm excited. You're local. I love to highlight local people. So you're local to St. Augustine, but please tell everyone where we can find you.
For sure. Well, my website is jennabraddock.com, and you'll find links there to my counseling and coaching. I work with brands, I speak, and I'm speaking a lot more on menopause in the next year. I'm really excited about bringing that to more practitioners as well as to just women in various audiences. You can find me on Instagram at Jenna Braddock RDN, which is registered dietitian nutritionist. Those are the main ones. And then I have to give us a little plug for women in business as well. If you're in the Northeast Florida area and you are a working woman who feel like God has called you into the workplace with skills and abilities, we want you to join us so that you can feel encouraged and equipped to glorify God in the workplace. So you can find us on Instagram at Women in Business STA. And our first meeting of the new year should be in February. We would love for you to join us.
Thank you so much. And if you're watching the video, you saw me jump over and plug my laptop in, by the way, because I was so afraid we were going to end as a black screen. So thank you so much, Jenna. I love having you on the podcast. I see that there are so many more things that we can talk about in the new year. We didn't even get to half the questions I wanted to ask you. And I'm feeling very blessed today to have you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kim.
And for everyone out there, please make sure you nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today.